I've always wanted to uncover the truth. It's what drove me to become a journalist. So when I got assigned to investigate the Follings family and their 12 adopted kids, I felt a chill run down my spine. They adopted all these kids back in 2005. People in town whispered about them, and I wanted to dig deeper. One chilly evening, I walked through the park. From a distance, I saw Mr. and Mrs. Follings arguing with a social worker. I could only catch snippets like missing paperwork. My curiosity urged me forward, but something felt off. The air felt heavy, as if it were holding secrets. Over the next few days, I kept an eye on the children. Watching from my second-floor window, I noticed them playing outside at strange hours. They laughed, but it sounded hollow. Their laughter echoed, but it gave me goosebumps. There was something empty in their eyes, something that felt wrong. That I tried to talk to the townsfolk. I asked questions, but they turned away, faces drawn tight. They didn't want to say much. I felt like I was poking a sore spot. A few quiet exchanges turned into glances that told me I should back off. But I couldn't. My gut told me I was close to something important. At night, strange noises echoed through my apartment. It felt like the walls themselves were whispering. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, but I couldn't ignore the feeling of dread creeping in. One evening, I decided to get bold. I rang the Follings doorbell. My heart raced as I stood there. Mr. Follings opened the door. He wore a smile that didn't feel genuine. "What brings you here?" he asked. I stammered a bit, but finally said, "I wanted to talk about the kids." He paused. That smile faded for a moment, replaced by something cold. "They're happy. Isn't that what counts?" I wasn't sure how to reply. His eyes held something that sent a chill through me. That night, I heard their voices again. The kids were outside, whispering in a language I couldn't understand. I felt frozen, standing in my hallway. What were they saying? I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment. It felt like they were drawing me towards whatever secret they were hiding. Then, one night, I saw one child alone in the yard. She looked up at my window, her eyes wide and unblinking. "Why are you up there?" I whispered. I leaned closer, but when I looked back, she was gone. It felt wrong. I felt sick that I questioned everything. Was I losing my mind, or was there something deeper? I had to know what was really happening in that house. As I sat in my apartment, feeling the weight of the mystery pressing down on me, I knew I couldn't just walk away. What would happen if I dug deeper? I needed to know the truth, but it felt like I was standing on the edge of a dark abyss. Would I find answers or lose myself in shadows? The next day, I resolved to get more information about the Follings. I started by doing a little research on other families in the area who had adopted children. I visited the local library, hoping to find archived news articles about the Follings family from when they first adopted. The librarian was polite but wary. I could see the tension in her face as I asked about any reports or mentions of the family. "We don't keep records that far back," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. "You might find something in the newspaper archives," but she hesitated, her eyes darting away from mine. "If you really need to know, maybe you should consider dropping it." It seemed even the librarian had her fears. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, so I pushed further. "Do you have any articles about their adoptions?" Her face went pale. "I think you should leave it alone," she replied softly, ignoring her warning. I went to the newspaper office to dig through the archives myself. I spent hours combing through old pages. Much of it was mundane, town events and school sports. But then I stumbled upon a small article from 2005. It detailed the Follings adopting multiple children, but it didn't mention specifics about the kids or how they were chosen. Only one line stood out: circumstances surrounding the adoptions remain unclear. That phrase stuck with me like a thorn. If the adoptions were unclear back then, what had happened since? I scribbled notes, my mind racing with what I might discover. I needed to meet someone who could tell me more. As I left the newspaper office, my instincts told me to head to the park again. Maybe I'd find the social worker and learn what was missing. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the ground. I spotted them together again, the Follings and the social worker, engaged in a hushed conversation. I found a hidden spot behind a tree and listened closely. Everything must be in order before the next evaluation, the social worker warned, her brow furrowed. Mr. Follings' face twitched. "We're doing everything we can," he shot back, his tone sharp. They turned to walk away, and I slipped out from my hiding place. Just as I thought I was free, I bumped into a small figure beside the tree. It was one of the kids. The same girl I had seen before, her face wide-eyed and pale. She reached out to me, her voice barely a whisper. "You can't help us. You should go." Before I could respond, she turned and ran back to the Follings. Panic gripped me. I should have followed her, but fear rooted me in place. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something shine under the bushes. I crouched to get a better look. It was a piece of paper, crumpled and torn. With shaking hands, I picked it up. That S when I saw it. It was a birth certificate, but the details were eerily blank. No names, no dates, nothing but an empty shell. I felt my heart race. What did this mean? The weight of my discovery slammed into me. Whoever these kids were, their identities were being hidden in plain sight. I had opened a door I couldn't close, and now I was dangerously close to exposing whatever lay behind it. The shadows were wrapping around me tighter. I had to know more, but would I be able to handle what I found? The next day, I couldn't shake the image of the blank birth certificate from my mind. I needed to find out who the kids really were. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, I decided to return to the park, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Follings or perhaps the girl who had warned me. As I approached, my heart raced. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting moving shadows on the ground. I spotted them again, but the atmosphere felt different this time. The kids were playing on the swings, but their laughter didn't sound joyous, more like nervous giggles that echoed an unspoken anxiety. That I settled on a bench nearby, trying to act casual as I observed. The Follings were close together, but I could see something in their body language that hinted at tension. Mr. Follings' arms were crossed, and Mrs. Follings kept glancing toward the street. I felt an urge to move closer but held back. Then, out of nowhere, I noticed a woman walking rapidly toward them. She was dressed in a crisp suit, her expression stern. As she got closer, I recognized her. It was the social worker, Angela. I leaned forward, straining to catch snippets of their conversation. "Not enough time," she insisted, her tone sharp. "I need answers about the evaluations. This isn't just paperwork, this is about their lives." "They're fine," Mr. Follings snapped back, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Angela wasn't having it. "You know that's not true." Not after everything. Her voice lowered, but the intensity was palpable even from where I sat. Something dark twisted in my gut. What had happened in the past? What were they hiding? I moved a little closer, noticing that the kids sat in silence now, watching with wide eyes. The girl I had seen before met my glance, and fear flashed across her face again before she quickly looked away. Suddenly, a loud noise broke the tension. A car engine revved loudly nearby, tires screeching against the asphalt. I turned just in time to see a black SUV pull up across the park. Several men in dark suits stepped out. They scanned the area, their demeanor serious. What was happening? I felt the unsettling tug of urgency. The Follings exchanged anxious glances as the men approached them, their conversation shifting abruptly under the weight of the newcomer's presence. I ducked behind a nearby tree, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I need you to come with us," one of the men said, his voice commanding. "Wait, what is going on?" Mrs. Follings shot back, her voice trembling. "We've done everything you asked. "There's no time for that now," he insisted, and then he turned to the kids. "Get in the car." Panic surged through me. I couldn't just watch. I had to act. I stepped out from my hiding spot, my mind racing with the implications of their demand. Just as I took a step forward, the girl turned and caught my eye again. "Please," she mouthed silently, a desperate plea that sent chills down my spine. Then, everything shifted. One of the men spotted me. "Hey! You!" he shouted, pointing directly at me. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. In that moment, the stakes felt higher than ever, and all I could think was that I was deep in something I might not be able to escape. The man sprinted toward me, and my instincts kicked in. I turned on my heel, desperate to break free from the chaos surrounding me. The park was a blur as I dodged trees and benches, instinct guiding my path. I could hear Angela shouting in the background, demanding answers. "Get the kids!" The commanding voice of the suited man echoed, sending my adrenaline skyrocketing. I veered hard left, my lungs burning as I cut through a small thicket. I glanced back and saw the man closing the distance. Panic surged through my veins. Who were they? Why did they want the kids? I pushed forward, finally spilling into a crowded street, hoping the people around would offer me some cover. I didn't dare slow down, even when a car honked in protest. My mind raced with images of the kids, each of them so small, so vulnerable. I couldn't abandon them. Just then, a familiar face surfaced in the throng. It was the girl from the Follings family, her wide eyes filled with fright. She was standing just across the street, staring back at me, as if torn between come with me and stay hidden. "Run!" I shouted at her, waving my arms frantically. I needed her to understand. She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder, and I could see the fear in her eyes morphing into something else, determination. Then, I turned to see the suited man cross the street towards me, his gaze locked on the girl. "Get in the car!" he yelled again, frustration cutting through his voice. "No!" I shouted back, my heart racing. This was turning into something bigger than I had anticipated. I felt an overwhelming need to protect her, to protect all of them. That I shoved my way through the crowd, my voice rising above the commotion. "Leave them alone." I felt myself getting closer, but I could see the man closing in, more dangerous with each step. I caught a glimpse of Angela behind him, appearing almost flustered as she shouted orders. Whatever was happening was clearly spiraling out of control. The girl took a step toward the road, and I reached out, grabbing her arm. "We need to go." She nodded urgently but said, "They won't let us." Just as we turned to run together, I heard the heavy thud of footsteps beside me. I glanced back, and the man lunged toward us. Instinct kicked in again, and without thinking, I yanked her hard to the right, towards a small alley just off the main street. As we darted into the shadows, my breath came in short bursts. I stumbled over a stack of cardboard boxes, and the girl fell, hitting the ground. "Quick!" I urged, scanning the entrance to the alley for any sign of the pursuers. That we had to hide, had to figure something out. I leaned down to help her up when I heard a voice just behind me. "You can't hide forever." My heart dropped. The man was only steps away. I could either confront him or keep running blind. "Look," he said calmly but firmly, "the kids need to come with us. You don't understand what's at stake." I took a deep breath, adrenaline mixing with an overwhelming sense of dread. Whatever was happening went deeper than I thought, and I needed to know. "Tell me the truth," I replied, my voice shaking but firm. "What is going on?" Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the sound of sirens pierced the air, and I felt a flicker of hope. But the man's reaction was immediate. His face dropped, and he turned, urgency now etched in every feature. "Go!" he shouted over his shoulder to another figure I hadn't noticed before, urging them to move toward the street. And then it hit me. I didn't have the time to wait for answers. I had to act fast, for both me and the kids. With my heart hammering, I pulled the girl up and we darted deeper into the shadows of the alley, desperate for an escape. I had to find out what lay ahead, and hope I wasn't too late. The alley was dark and cramped, the air thick with the scent of trash and abandonment. I led the girl deeper into the shadows, where the sounds of the bustling street faded to a dull roar. I glanced back, anticipating the suited man bursting in after us. I needed to find a way out. "Where do we go?" the girl whispered. Her wide eyes darted nervously around the narrow space as she clung to my arm. "I don't know." "Just away from him," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. As we pushed past the boxes, I heard voices drawing nearer. The suited man's voice carried, cold and demanding. "Split up. We can't let her get away." I felt my heart sink into my stomach. Whoever he was working with had made my situation exponentially worse. I took a quick glance around, spotting a faint light at the far end of the alley. It had to lead somewhere. "Come on." I grabbed the girl's hand, urging her forward. We ran toward the light, careful to stay as quiet as possible. Just as we reached the end, a loud crash echoed behind us. Someone had knocked over a trash can. The commotion grew louder, footsteps pounding closer. We emerged into a small courtyard, surrounded by brick walls. My chest tightened. It was a dead end. I looked around frantically for a way out, my heart racing again. What now? Before she could answer, I caught movement to my left. There was a rusty fire escape ladder fixed to the wall. Without thinking, I pointed to it. "Up. We have to go up." She nodded, and we rushed toward the ladder. I climbed, the metal squeaking under my weight, and I pulled the girl up after me. My fingers slipped on the rungs, and my legs felt like lead. But I couldn't let her down. At the top, we scrambled onto the roof. I flung myself over the edge and fell into a low crouch, scanning the surrounding streets below. The sirens still wailed in the distance, but they seemed to be drawing away. The suits were chasing shadows, and I planned to stay out of their sight. "Where do we go now?" the girl asked, breathless and nervous that I took a deep breath, trying to think clearly. "We need to find somewhere to hide. We can't risk getting caught." As I looked around, something caught my eye. Farther down the roof, I saw a narrow gap that led to the next building. My instincts kicked in again. "There. We can jump to that building." She hesitated, glancing down. "Do you think we can make it?" "There's no choice." I insisted. "Just follow my lead." I felt fear bubble up as I looked back toward the side of the building we had escaped. The noise from the courtyard below intensified. They would be on us any second. No time left that I turned and sprinted for the gap, preparing to leap. I felt the adrenaline spike again. But then, just as I jumped, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, a figure appearing at the edge of the rooftop. "Stop!" a voice shouted, sharp and commanding that I landed hard on the next building, stumbling to regain my balance. I glanced back to see the suited man now sprinting towards us, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "We have to run," I shouted as I turned to the girl. Just then, I heard another voice, this one friendly, but still urgent. "Over here. This way." I didn't dare hesitate. The sound wove its way into my mind, a promise of safety. But who was calling? I had to find out before it was too late. I darted toward the voice, my pulse racing. The girl followed closely behind me, her breath hot against my neck. The suited man was gaining on us, each footfall echoing in my ears. I needed to trust that the voice belonged to someone who would help, but fear swirled in my gut that we turned a corner, running past an old ventilation shaft that jutted out from the building. The voice called again, a bit louder now. "This way. You're close." I spotted a slanted rooftop ahead with a skylight and jumped, hoping it would offer a path into the building. My foot landed on the edge, and I fumbled briefly before regaining my balance. I pulled the girl up beside me, and together we scrambled down toward the skylight. "Push it open," I said, urgency tightening my tone. She nodded, and with trembling hands, she levered her body against the glass. It creaked and popped, finally giving way under her weight. Just then, the suited man rounded the corner, his shadow looming on the rooftop behind us. I barely had time to think before I slid through the opening. I could hear him shout, and adrenaline shot through me as I reached down to help the girl inside. She tumbled in beside me, and I quickly set the glass back into place, hoping it would buy us some time. The room inside was dark but felt solid, with the faint smell of dust and damp. I could barely see, but I heard echoes of footsteps below us and the rush of voices. They were looking for us. A chill peppered my skin. "Where are we?" The girl's voice quivered next to me. "Looks like some sort of storage area," I whispered, strained to listen. I couldn't be sure if we were safe, but there was nowhere to run now. I crouched down, cautiously moving toward the edge of the skylight, peering through the small opening. Below, I could see the suited man entering the building, flanked by two others. They were scanning the area, searching for us. "This way," I murmured, pulling back and feeling the wall for any way out. My fingers brushed over something rough, a staircase leading down. "We can't go back. They'll find us," the girl insisted, panic creeping into her tone. "Trust me," I replied, trying to sound more sure than I felt. "We can't stay here. We need a plan." As we descended quietly, I heard snippets of their conversation. "She can't have gone far. It's not her first time hiding." I froze, my blood running cold. They knew her. That's when I saw it, I thought, spotting an emergency exit sign flickering in the dim light of the stairwell. Hope bloomed, but I felt the weight of the girl's fear creeping into me. We edged closer, but as I reached for the door, I heard a loud crash from above. The suited man was backtracking. They were coming down. "No, no, no," I muttered, adrenaline surging again. The door jiggled beneath my fingers as I pushed it open, and I locked eyes with the confusion on the girl's face. I knew we had to move, but the fear of getting caught loomed larger than ever. "This way," I urged, stepping outside into the unknown, a new spark of desperation lighting my way. The fluorescent lights flickered as we stepped outside, casting an eerie glow over the narrow alley. The moment the door clicked shut behind us, I felt a rush of cold air slice through the tension. We had to keep moving. My eyes darted across the darkened street, empty, save for the distant hum of traffic. "Where do we go?" the girl whispered, her voice barely rising above the sound of my racing heart. "We need to find a place to hide," I replied, scanning our surroundings. I spotted an old dumpster to the left, a broken-down car to the right. Neither seemed ideal, but the alley offered few options. The suited man would be searching every inch of that building above us. Just then, I noticed a glimmer of light further down the alley. "This way." I beckoned, leading her toward it. It was a small, open doorway tucked between two buildings. My instincts screamed at me, but I had no other choice. We slipped inside, the door creaking softly as I pulled it closed behind us. The inside was dim and narrow, a long corridor with peeling walls. The smell of stale air invaded my lungs. I held my breath and listened. "Do you hear that?" She tilted her head, trying to catch the sound. Faint voices echoed from somewhere deeper within the building. I frowned, unsure if those sounds were a blessing or a curse. "Maybe they're friends," she suggested, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. "Or maybe they're just as dangerous." I kept my voice low, the words catching in my throat. But we couldn't stay put. We pressed forward, staying close to the wall as we moved stealthily down the corridor. The voices grew clearer, bouncing off the walls like secrets shared too loudly. I felt the girl's hand clasp my arm, anchoring me with her fear. Then I saw it. A door at the end of the hall with a small window. I tiptoed closer, afraid of what we might find. I squinted through the glass and froze. Inside, a group of men in their familiar black suits were gathered around a table, staring intently at scattered papers. I leaned closer, squinting to catch a glimpse of what they were looking at. There, in the middle of the table, lay a series of photographs. My stomach twisted as I recognized one face among them. It was her. "They have pictures of you," I whispered, panic flooding me. "What?" she gasped, eyes wide. I turned away from the door, heart racing. "We have to move. They must be looking for us." As we turned to leave, a loud crash echoed from behind us. Someone was in the corridor, coming our way. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing her hand as we bolted down the hall, our footsteps pounding like a war drum in my ears. But just as we rounded a corner, the world spiraled into chaos. The sound of shouts filled the air. The suited men had spotted us. "Over there!" one of them yelled. My heart plummeted as I realized we were cornered. The only way was forward, but I knew we had no chance. I pulled the girl toward a staircase crammed into the wall beside us. "We have to go up." We sprinted toward the stairs, desperation driving our legs. As I glanced back, I saw them closing in. The girl stumbled but regained her footing. I couldn't let them catch us. Not now. I pushed through the door leading to the stairs just as a hand reached for me from behind. Then everything went dark. I came to with a jolt, gasping for air. The darkness was thick, almost suffocating. My hands instinctively shot out, feeling for any surface. I braced myself against what felt like a cold metal railing. "Hey," a voice called from the shadows. My heart raced again. I wasn't alone. "Are you all right?" I squinted, trying to make sense of my surroundings. I could see a dim light flickering from above. There were staircases twisting upward, and the space felt confined like a cramped basement. "I'm fine," I replied, my throat dry. I pulled myself up, scanning for the girl. She was nearby, shaking but upright. Relief flooded over me. "Where are we?" she asked, her eyes wide and terrified. "I'm not sure," I admitted. We went up the stairs, and then, I couldn't form the words. "Do you think they're still after us?" I forced myself to listen, straining for sounds. Silence fell over the underground space, save for our quick breaths. Just then, a loud bang startled us. My pulse quickened. The sound echoed through the hallway we had just come from. Someone was on our trail. "We should keep moving," I said, urgency lacing my voice. I stepped tentatively down the narrow hall, the girl close behind me. Each step felt weighted, the fear pressing down like a heavy fog. Eventually, the flickering light grew brighter. I rounded a corner and found a metal door with a small window, glass cracked in places. I pressed my face against it to peer inside. A makeshift room filled with files and containers lay beyond. "That looks like an office," I whispered, trying to get a better look. "Maybe we can find something useful." Before I could delve deeper into my thoughts, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed behind us, heavy boots advancing down the stairs. My heart raced as I turned back to the girl, who was now visibly shaking. "We don't have much time," I whispered urgently. "We need to get in there." I gestured toward the door. I pulled the handle, and with a loud creak, the door swung open. I quickly ushered her inside and followed, closing the door quietly behind us. Inside, I caught my breath. Papers were strewn all over the room, and a faint glow from an old computer screen illuminated the space. I hurried over, seeing if it was still operational. "Can you help me?" I asked, my fingers brushing over the keyboard. "We need information. Anything about what's happening." She nodded, her fear turning into focus as she joined me. As she glanced over the papers, a sudden panic washed over her. "Wait, look at this," she said, holding up a document. My breath caught in my throat. It was a list, names typed neatly but with no context. This is a list of kids, I said, scanning the names. My heart sank. On the paper, I saw the year 2005. Then I noticed something even stranger. Each name was marked with a code. My stomach churned. What do you think this means? I looked at her, but before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from the hallway outside. The door rattled against its frame. Run! I shouted, adrenaline kicking in as the reality of our situation became clear. There was no time left. As we dashed towards the back of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening ran deeper than just us. That list was only the beginning. We scrambled towards the back of the room, searching for any kind of escape. Papers flew up around us like startled birds as we moved. My mind raced. There had to be something, a window, a vent, anything that could lead us out of this nightmare. The pounding on the door grew louder, a steady rhythm that echoed my heartbeat. I spotted a small window above a metal shelf. It was covered in grime but looked big enough for us to squeeze through. Over there. I pointed. Help me move this. We hurried to the shelf, each crash of boots getting closer. Together, we pushed it against the wall and I climbed up, my fingers pulling against the ledge. I could hear her breathing hard below me. Can you reach it? She asked, panic creeping into her voice. I think so, I said, trying to pull myself farther up. I felt a rush of hope. If we could just get out then, with one last heave, I made it to the ledge. I leaned in and wiped the glass clear with my sleeve. Outside, I could see a blurry view of darkness. I strained to get a better look, but the shadows obscured everything. Can you see anything? She asked, looking up anxiously. Not really, I admitted, heart sinking. We need to get out now. Suddenly, the door splintered with a loud crack. The force behind it sent a jolt through my body. I slipped off the ledge, scrambling back down in a rush. Get ready to run, I warned her, lunging for the door just as it gave way. Two figures surged through the entrance. I barely caught a glimpse of their dark forms before I yanked her behind the shelf. They were dressed in black, faces hidden by masks. My pulse was roaring in my ears. I fought to stay silent, my instincts screaming danger. The intruders stepped further into the room, their voices low and urgent. Check the office. They must be here somewhere. My heart dropped at their words. They were looking for us. I felt the girl's hand squeeze mine tightly. I turned to her, our eyes locking in mutual fear. We need to stay quiet, I whispered. One of the figures walked toward the cluttered desk, rifling through the papers at an alarming speed. They can't have gotten far. They've seen the list, he said, sounding frustrated. I felt a surge of anger and desperation. That list, we had to find out what it meant. But we couldn't risk it now. Focus, the second figure snapped. We'll track them down later. We need to find out what they know first. A chill ran down my spine. Did they know about the names? Or the connection to the past? I had to think fast. The shelves were packed tight, but there was no other way out. I gestured for the girl to follow as softly as possible, using the bulk of the shelf for cover. Just as we were inching toward the rear door on the opposite side, the loud crash of a container falling over barely masked my growing dread. The intruders spun around, their attention drawn back toward us. I think they're behind the shelf. One shouted, his voice rising in urgency. Before I could react, the girl turned, eyes wide with terror. We have to move now. I nodded, adrenaline surging through me. We bolted for the back door, pushing it open. Beyond it lay a dark corridor, no time to hesitate. I grabbed her hand tightly, ready to run into the unknown. But then I heard a voice from behind me, a whisper I wouldn't forget. This isn't over. We'll find you. The cold trust of those words clung to me as we dashed into the corridor. The hallway twisted and turned like a maze, each corner feeling like a new beginning and a new threat. With my heart pounding in my chest, I held the girl's hand tightly as we raced through the dark. The urgency from just moments ago began to recede, but not the fear. All I could think about was escaping the nightmare we stumbled into. Finally, we reached another door, this one swinging open into a dimly lit stairwell that spiraled upward. I pulled her toward it, each step feeling heavier than the last. We need to get higher. The street level might be crawling with them by now, I whispered, willing my legs to move faster that we climbed silently, trying to keep our breathing steady. Each step echoed our hurried direction, and I couldn't shake the feeling that those shadows behind us were still lurking, waiting to pounce. As we reached the top floor, I paused, pushing back the door cautiously and peering through. A cold breeze rushed in, carrying the faint sounds of the city, the relentless hum of life clamoring outside, strikingly normal compared to the chaos we had just escaped. That I gestured for the girl to follow me outside onto what appeared to be a rooftop, flat, expansive, and open. I took a moment to catch my breath while scanning the surroundings. Below, the streets were dark, and parked cars lined the road like shadows waiting for someone to step into their embrace. Just when I thought we might find a moment of respite, I heard the door slam open behind us. I turned to see silhouettes spilling out into the stairwell, continuing their relentless pursuit. My stomach churned. "We have to go, now!" I yelled, urgency fueling my legs as I scanned the rooftop for any means of escape. That I spotted a fire escape at the far end, but it required a quick sprint across open space. I grabbed the girl's hand again, giving her a nod to reassure her. "On 3, we run. 1, 2, 3, go!" We bolted toward the fire escape, adrenaline coursing through my veins. A glance back revealed 2 figures emerging onto the rooftop searching for us, their faces still obscured by the inky shadows of their hoods. "Faster!" I urged, pushing us both onward. We leaped onto the fire escape, metal creaking beneath us as we made our descent back to the street below. Each second felt like an eternity. I had one eye on the ladder and the other on the rooftop above, willing our pursuers to stay holed up there for just a few more precious moments. Once we reached the ground, I pulled the girl into the nearby alley next to an old warehouse, where the dim city light struggled to filter through. We pressed ourselves against the cold brick wall, breathless. "What now?" she panted, wild eyes darting nervously. "Find a way to blend in, to disappear." I scanned the street. The alley felt too exposed. We could hide in that thicket of trash bins over there, or suddenly, the sound of footsteps interrupted me. The suited men were searching dark corners, their fingers brushing against dumpsters as if sensing we were nearby. I felt her hand grip my arm tighter, raw panic radiating from her. In that moment, I had a revelation, one that felt both right and absurd. There's a chance they won't recognize us if we don't appear like we're running. I crouched lower, urging her to follow suit. "We act casual. Walk like we belong here." Together, we emerged from the shadows, trying to appear less like fugitives and more like pedestrians in a mundane, tattered city gathering. Ahead of us, I spotted a trio of people chatting under a flickering streetlight. The vague silhouettes began to take on shape as we approached the curb, ready to blend in with the throng of movement. "Just act natural," I instructed quietly, and to my surprise, she nodded resolutely. We walked slowly, keeping our heads tilted slightly downward. My heart pounded, not least because of the tension radiating off of me, yet unraveling our situation only heightened my anxieties. Would we escape the chaos, or would they turn around to spot us? Would they find the kids if they hadn't already? I felt my nerves rattle away like shaking thoughts. A world of uncertainty lay ahead of us, shrouded in darkness and intrigue. Then I noticed something flicker in my periphery, a sign illuminating an all-night diner across the street. Not perfect, but we could blend in, at least for a moment. Holding my breath as we neared it, something unexpected pointed toward hope. Just as I stepped onto the diner's threshold, my phone buzzed violently from my pocket. I froze. Across the threshold of the neon-lit diner, a familiar face appeared, framing my world with an unsettling sense of recognition. You need to listen carefully, but all I could think was what happened next. Would I even understand the truth when I was standing right beside it,